Tena koutou te whanau o Aotearoa Unitarians. Tena koutou nā mana here, no mai, haere mai, ki tēnei whare karakia a te atua, tena koutou, tena tatou katoa. And I can hear you say,
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
The words for our chalice lighting are these. My beloved people, I cannot pretend. So I will not tell you that everything is okay right now, that there's no reason to be angry, that you must be optimistic or at peace. I cannot pretend these things, and so I won't tell them to you. And now our chalice is lit. And so all I ask in this moment is that we remember the words of Rebecca Parker. There is a love. There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all. By the light of our chalice, let us rest in this love. This morning, our opening hymn is not going to be Spirit of Life again. Sorry for those who miss it. But I want you to hear one we know very well, so you could sing along. It's We Are a Gentle, Angry People. But there's a prologue to it, telling you the story behind it, the backstory. So I invite you to listen and then sing. A final candle for those things in the world that have changed our lives and how we've had to learn to adapt. For me, probably the first thing was the assassination of JFK, later Bobby and Martin. And then comes 9/11. And then comes COVID. And each of those things changed the world in dramatic ways and calling on us to find the reserves within us to adapt and see ourselves in the world in new ways, hopefully constructive ones. So I light that candle to find hope in the midst of darkness. My reading for today is by Glennon Doyle, and it's called Harnessing Our Anger. It's kind of a meditation of hers or a reflection. I am really struggling with my anger lately. I just feel angry all the time. What's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you because you are angry. Anger is a normal human instructional emotion, just like joy. It's just that we as women, just like every marginalized group, are trained and tamed to be ashamed of our anger. It's important for every single marginalized group to be trained and told over and over again that if they're angry, that means there's something wrong with them. Why would power structures want marginalized people to believe that their anger is something to be ashamed of? Because people who do not struggle with their anger, but instead embrace their anger and harness their anger, are people who demand change. The only people who have ever changed the world were people who were pissed off and who stopped trying to manage their anger or fix their anger or struggle with their anger, and instead embraced their anger, harnessed their anger with other angry people, and unleashed it in creative ways to make change. What if instead of struggling with our anger, we consider what we consider that when we feel angry inside, maybe it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with us. Maybe it means that something's wrong. Not wrong with us, wrong out there, something we might be able to help change. Women from time immemorial have been gaslit by the entire world. Every time we felt angry and somebody tells us we're crazy, the truth is that angry women are not broken. We are just some of the only people who are responding appropriately to a broken world. Most of my activism in the world is done because I have trusted my anger, because when I get pissed off, I just assume that there's something to be together, genius and our talent and our resources and our energy, and we unleash it. The really cool thing about anger is that when you use it out there, it disappears for a while. When you stop swallowing it over and over again and studying it and trying not to be it and feeling ashamed of it and not speaking your truth, when you use it, it's fuel, it burns up. And then you just settle back down until you get pissed off again. I'm now going to offer our next song. It's from our supplemental hymnal, and it's called As We Sing of Hope and Joy. Well, my musing this week, I entitled Trigger Happy, What Sets Me Off? Last week in my musings about conspiracy theorists, I relied on my pastoral training to encourage you to respect their human dignity and listen to them. Ask questions about their fears, remain connected to them, love them. What the hell was I thinking? This is a case of do as I say, not as I do. Those who spread conspiracy theories and endanger people enrage me. Last week, I found in the letterbox a slick pamphlet telling me why it was dangerous to get a COVID vaccine and that wearing a mask is a government plot to take away my freedom of choice. It looked like it was sent by an official organization. I explored who they were on the internet, but I could find no mention of them. It was designed to take in the vulnerable and undermine public health. I was pissed off. I know Unitarians don't believe in hell, but I thought we should reconsider our position. So I could consign these demons to Dante's ninth level of hell, called Cossus, the last circle of hell. The deepest, most terrible circle is reserved for those who betray, where they are encased in a frozen lake for all eternity. Before COVID, I already had a lengthy list of those I thought eligible for one of Dante's circles: bullies, racists, pedophiles, the corrupt, homophobes who use freedom of religion to abuse the LGBTQ community, war criminals, slavers, misogynists, and exploiters, the marginalized. All keep my blood at a boiling temperature. Since the pandemic, the list has been expanded to include those who protect and strengthen systemic racism, like David Seymour, leader of the Conservative ACT Party, who tweeted the code intended to make it easy for Maori to get an appointment for a vaccine so Pakeha could use it instead. And then there are those Aussie politicians trying to convince their people they just have to learn to live with Delta even as they are dying from it, rather than make the hard choices that are inconvenient and may have economic consequences. Are profits really more important than people's lives? Apparently, some think so, like the neoliberal forces of capitalism who have used this shock doctrine moment to deploy their own brand of pandemic capitalism. For instance, taking wage subsidies and then not passing them on to the employees the government is trying to protect. It may not be very pastoral, but oh, it feels so good to get that off my chest. These are some of my triggers, and I feel ever so justified in my self-righteousness to fire away. That is until I remember the words of one of my beloved theologians, Frederick Buechner. He says this: of the 7 deadly sins, anger is possibly the most fun. To lick your wounds, to smack grievances long past, to roll over your tongue the prospect of bitter confrontation still to come, to savor to the last toothsome morsel both the pain you are given and the pain you are giving back. In many ways, it is a feast fit for a king. The chief drawback is that what you're wolfing down is yourself. The skeleton at the feast is you. Then there is also a Zen story that teaches a little more about the hell I crave for those who trample social, economic, and earth justice and deny human rights to others. The story goes like this. A big, fierce samurai once addressed a little monk. Monk, he bellowed, accustomed to instant obedience, teach me about heaven and hell. The monk looked up at this warrior with disdain. Teach you about heaven and hell? I can't teach you anything. You're filthy. You smell. Your blade is rusty. You're an embarrassment to the samurai class. The samurai shook with fury, red in the face, speechless with rage. He unsheathed his sword and raised it above him, preparing to smite the monk. This is hell, the monk said softly. The samurai stopped and looked down at the little monk, touched by the compassion and surrender of this man who had offered to give his life to teach about hell. The samurai lowered his sword, filled with gratitude and peace. And this is heaven, said the monk. The Reverend Joe Cowie tells this story. Mary Jane was on her way home to Denver. At the Omaha airport, she bought a newspaper and a small packet of biscuits for the transit, then took a seat at her gate and began to pursue the news. Another passenger sat down, pulled a book out of his briefcase and began to read. She heard a rustle and noticed over the edge of her paper that he was opening a packet. Actually, she couldn't believe it. He was opening her packet, the one with her things on the seat between them. Her packet, her biscuits. He took 2. She was speechless. She reached over and took out one, making sure he saw her. Maybe he thought the packet had been left there, but no, he munched away and then took another one. She reached over and took another, thinking surely he'd realize what he'd done. There was only one cookie left now. She could hardly believe it when he pushed the near empty container toward her, implying it was hers for the taking. The gall! And then he got up and walked away toward the place where she'd bought the cookies. Imagine her surprise when she boarded the plane, opened her bag, and found the unopened packet of biscuits. Can you relate? Who is the other person who can trigger us like that? It's no secret that the most challenging aspect of a spiritual life is other people. I've noticed that when I am triggered, I narrow myself to manage the emotion, and that to find peace, I have to skillfully transform my anger into something useful. To do that, I need to restore my sense of interconnectedness and expansiveness. Sometimes, though, if my anger creates a conflict with another, transforming anger isn't so simple. When I'm in conflict when I'm in conflict with someone, it's difficult to be in my own skin. I'm tense, and my testosterone levels rise, pushing me to say unhelpful and hurtful things. I can't sleep, too busy plotting how to defeat my opponent. Observer, this is troubling. Then I remember, if I stop trying to win, the conflict may resolve in a wise agreement and a stronger relationship. It's mysterious this way. A conflict handled well changes unhealthy assumptions in relationships, like there has to be a winner and a loser, or a dominant party and a subordinate. Psychologist Ken Reeves says that conflicts go through stages, 4 of them to be exact. Stage 1, he says, is the honeymoon or pseudo harmony stage. A harmony based on the participants ignoring their differences and being happy. This stage can last from a few moments to lifetimes. This is the peace at any price stance to avoid conflict. The price of such peace can include anxiety, depression, and boredom, but it does avoid tension. In the Zen story, the samurai expects stage 1 from the monk. A typical subordinate would bow to the samurai. The monk would offer a meek little homily about heaven and hell and hope the samurai goes away. Our monk did not and moved the process to stage 2, the pressure stage. At stage 2, the differences become apparent and cause discomfort, to which the participants respond by pressuring the other to change. The message is, I'm uncomfortable, you change. I'm in pain, you fix. You are wrong, agree with me. The other often replies with, now I'm uncomfortable, you change, as they pressure each other. Put downs, rage, violence, and even war occur at this stage. The monk does stage 2 with his derision of the samurai. I'm uncomfortable with your smell, your armor, you change. The samurai does stage 2 as he prepares to smite the monk. I am uncomfortable with your rudeness, you change by ceasing to live. At stage 2, differences fill the air, as do fear of our faults being exposed and shame for being weak or wrong or not smart enough. Defending ourselves keeps us wanting to win at all costs. Some people think conflict consists only of stage 2 and stay there for a long time. Ideally, though, stage 2 becomes tiring, for as the monk said, stage 2 is hell, war is hell, and matters do not improve despite vigorous applications of pressure. The third stage is vulnerability and curiosity. Attempts to pressure one to change have failed, so I give them up. I start talking about what is going on with me, such as my share of responsibility for the problem and curiosity about the other. How can I understand you better? I can feel uncomfortable with this vulnerability, but relieved to end the back and forth attacks. The monk shows himself at stage 3 by sitting vulnerable as the samurai raises his sword and by telling the samurai, this is hell. Our monk has great faith in stage 3. The samurai shows himself at stage 3 when he views the monk with compassion and lowers his sword. At stage 3, I take a risk to gain what I most want in life, to be myself and to be close to someone else. I hope the eye beholding my vulnerability will look at me with acceptance, as did the samurai, lowering his sword and gazing at the monk. At stage 3, I no longer pressure my opponent to be who I want them to be, but look at them with acceptance and listen to the truth. And if we both speak the truth that lives in our hearts, the walls that separate us disappear. A bridge spans our rift. We meet, move together to stage 4, peace. Maybe I can do what I said last week. Sometimes even I listen to what I am preaching. Understanding our triggers helps because it can keep us from lashing out. Thich Nhat Hanh says, if your house is on fire, the most urgent thing to do is go back to yourself and put out the fire. Going after the other is like running after the arsonist while letting your house burn down. Ruby says, delight in your anger. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Yes, we are all a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, especially anger, for we need our anger. As we skillfully air our grievance with our friends, family, and colleagues, we transform the hell of a dominant subordinate culture to a culture formed by collaboration and connection. Creating this camaraderie with those we live and work with develops our capacity to do so in the larger systems of our lives. We need our anger, says psychologist James Averill, to generate the moral outrage, to motivate people to push for a more just society. You see people using their anger this way everywhere. Martin Luther King said to an audience at Carnegie Hall in February 1968, it's not enough for people to be angry. He recalled the life of W.E.B. Du Bois and how Du Bois had spent his life overcoming his anger in the hopes of finding peace. King said of Du Bois that night, he did not content himself with hurling invectives for emotional release. to only retreat into smug, passive satisfaction. The supreme task for Dubois then, and for us now, is to organize and unite people so that their anger becomes a transforming force. May this be our practice here, a practice that moves us all towards justice and peace. Let your anger teach you, guiding you to heaven. I'm going to offer another song as you think about that. And it's time to extinguish the flame. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we gather together again. I will go to our closing words, entitled Useful Anger by Stephen Schick. He starts with a quote by Marge Piercy. A good anger swallowed clots the blood to slime. But what is to be done with it, this anger that dare not be swallowed? Should it be diluted with denial, cooled with indifference? Should it be sweetened with good intentions, softened with lies? Should it be spewed out red hot over searing tongues, scorching the guilty and innocent alike? What's to be done with it, this anger that dare not be swallowed? Don't dilute it, deny it, or cool it. Don't sweeten it or soften it, but pause for a moment. Could you hold it before your eyes, examine it with your heart and mind? Could you hold it, then touch it to your belly, that place where your soul rests? Could you let it enter there, knowing it is part of you that needs to be treated kindly, that needs to be listened to, that needs to be honored? For it has the power to save you, to save us all. Okay, well, we have a nice turnout today, and it's time for a conversation starter in small groups. And the question is, how are you angry? Or how angry are you? What are your triggers? And how are you making it useful? That's the important question.